In this topic, we'll be discussing project identification and selection. Now, there are 3 basic steps in a lean project lifecycle. So the lifecycle of a project begins at the project identification stage, then the project selection stage, followed by the project management. So following your meetings and discussions with the project sponsors, the champions, and the process owners, your team typically brainstorms to figure out project ideas. The project hopper is a centralized storage area for potential process improvement and project ideas. So there could be several considerations when coming up with a list of project ideas. A long list may be qualified, and then just a few ideas are shortlisted. Now, in the project identification and selection process, we typically have 4 steps. The first step is the short list of project opportunities. The second step is determining the selection criteria. Step 3 is prioritizing the project opportunities. And then step 4, ultimately selecting the best project opportunity. Now, in wanting to select the best project opportunity, there are other dimensions to consider. So when we're ranking potential projects, you can use different elements or dimensions to help you identify it. In this case, we have 3 examples: the scale of benefit, ease of implementation, and other considerations. Under scale of benefit, we're thinking about the size of the opportunity, or we're looking at the money that is going to be saved, or is there a cost avoidance if we prioritize this project and work on it first? What's the repeatable benefit? These are all examples of the scale. When we look at ease of implementation, it's just that. Is there the estimated resource hours? Are they reasonable? Are they realistic? Is a project important and at the same time with a minimal amount of hours required, in which case that might be a good candidate for a project versus one that's going to require many resources and lots of hours. The estimated timescale, the estimated level of resistance. How much resistance are we going to face if we try to implement this process or look at changing this process? Or the number of cross-functional teams impacted. If you have a process that's impacting several different cross-functional teams, it could be more complicated to implement immediately. So again, another area of focus or dimension to consider. And then you have other considerations. For example, do the projects align to strategy? If they're aligned to strategy, they'll most likely be supported and therefore possibly good candidates for a project. Do they sustain or develop client focus? Is it related to a quality policy? Maybe it's a requirement that needs to be fulfilled. And is there capital required? Which, if capital is available, is a good thing. If it's not available, it could prioritize that particular project lower down on the list. Now, another way to help guide and score your project ideas is by using a priority matrix. You've got a different element of scoring related to the scale of complexity of the project. So, as an example, you might have a weighting, and then you have a score from 1 to 10, and the multiplication of these 2 factors give you an overall weighted score that then you can use to prioritize the projects with. A higher score against criteria that is more important or weighted higher will likely show up on the top and therefore most likely be the project you'd want to work on. So let's look at some project examples. Onboarding program for staff, improving turnaround times for project approvals, both really good examples of administrative elements or projects that can be used to demonstrate in a new environment on how the project process works. Streamlining meal delivery, again, a very relevant project. You're helping make a process that an end patient or client is requiring easier and more enjoyable. Reducing elective surgery cancellations. Improving the process for restocking a supply. Again, a very administrative but essential process to look at in terms of an improvement project. Medication supplies ordering and delivery. Can we make that process optimal? Turnaround time for a new program development. These are all good examples of projects. There are cases where you should avoid specific projects, and they aren't projects that have specific areas of focus per se, but they're ones where, as an example, you have lack of sponsorship. If you don't have a sponsor that will remain hands-on through the process to help you remove roadblocks, that's not a project that you should probably take on. There will be a high risk that it will fail. Lack of organizational support. Again, very similar to lack of sponsorship. If the organization is really not interested in helping provide you resources, tools, etc., then the likelihood of that project being successful will be quite low. lack of strategic alignment. This is an important one. When you're choosing a project, ensure that it's aligning to the strategic focus for the organization. Because if not, and rightfully so, people will be asking, why are we doing it? And again, mostly a technical element, lack of project definition. As I always say, if you're going to go to a meeting, always ensure that you have an agenda for the meeting, because an agenda for the meeting suggests and shows that there is a focus for that meeting. So whoever organized that meeting will have a very specific focus in conducting it. And so an agenda demonstrates that that's the case. In the case of a project, if there isn't a clear definition, if you haven't seen a project charter, or you haven't seen an A3, or any document that outlines the specifics of the project, it's probably a project that you should avoid.